Good morning, everyone. Can everybody
Morning.
hear us? Okay. I know that we're waiting on some people to join us, but I'm conscious that the Minister is with us and she has a very busy schedule today, so we'll perhaps just begin. I'm Irene Sherry, and as Chair of the Voluntary Community Social Enterprise Sectoral Advisory Board of the Belfast Community Plan Partnership, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this morning's conference. Moving straight to some practicalities, please feel free to keep your cameras on for the conference, but we would ask you to mute yourself to make it easy as possible for everyone to hear our speakers and participants. With over 150 people zooming in today, as you well know, this is a new verb for 2020, we ask you for your patience. When we move you into breakout rooms, there are a lot of us to move around, even virtually, so it may take some time, so please be patient. So for some background, the Voluntary Community Social Enterprise panel was set up after consultation with the sector to strengthen participation and representation of Belfast's VCSE sector in community planning in the city. And as you will know, the advisory panel members were identified via an independently managed nomination and selection process by NICFA, and we would like to thank NICFA for all their work. While our meeting, which was originally scheduled for the week we went into lockdown, didn't happen until June, our focus and remain the same: to ensure that the sector's voices are represented as part of the community planning process, to develop and to improve cross-sectoral relationships and partnerships, and to promote effective community engagement. As a group of people drawn from both large and small organisations across the city, our experience since March has reaffirmed our commitment to playing a full role in the community planning structure as we saw the principles and values of community planning come to life in the city's emergency response. And that brings us to today. As well as reflecting on our recent experience, we want to look to the future along with key partners, including the Minister for Communities and Chief Executive of Belfast City Council. We will take the opportunity to hear about partnership working, statutory innovation, and public policy development in Scotland and Wales. We also want to hear from you about key themes, including accountability, partnership, and impact. We want to ensure that community planning is shaped not only by the expertise of the sector and the experience of the people of Belfast. We envisage that the conversation started and the insights shared this morning will form the basis for further conversations informing key strategies and services that will shape both the city and regionally for many years to come. Since our first outcomes-based programme for government, there has been significant emphasis on co-design and partnership working. With the return of the institutions in January, the lessons of COVID-19 and the development of a new programme for government currently underway, we are looking forward to hearing from the Minister for Communities, Carál Ní Chuilín. But before we do, we want to find out a little more about you. We're going to ask you two questions, the first of which should pop up on your screen now, and we will give you a minute to answer. The first question: what area of Belfast do you operate in? And the second: what policy areas do you cover? Just giving you time. We're trying to get a sense of what areas that you work in. north, west, south, east, across Belfast or regionally? And what policy areas do you cover?
I don't see a section for women. I can't see any way to take women.
You know, so what I would say to you then, and this is very upsetting for me, if you put under other.
I've already submitted it.
Perfect. That's perfect then. Thanks a million.
Can you add women in under my?
Oh, I will. I will. Don't worry. I'll do that.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Has everybody had an opportunity? Okay. So thank you for taking part in our poll and first engagement of today. Close to sharing the poll results. So as you can see there, 8% from north, 15 from west, 13 south, 8 east, across the city 24, and regionally 31% of the areas that they operate in. The policy areas.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting. Very great when you consider that we're here in terms of how we community planning and our health and well-being in the city. So that's fantastic. So thanks very much. Thanks, Claire, for sharing the poll. So at this point, I'd like to welcome the Minister for Communities, who since coming into office has not only taken up the mantle of COVID response, but is also very much focusing on the future with anti-poverty strategy, advisory group, and a new vision for housing and community wealth building. Minister Carál Ní Chuilín, it's over to you.
So, Majimoi, everyone, good morning. And Irene and Jim, thank you very much for the invitation to speak at today's conference. I think the three phases that none of us will forget from 2020 is, can you hear me? You're on mute, and you're on mute. So it's been really, really difficult, but I just want to say well done to you all for organising so many people today. I know that these conversations have been ongoing probably from 2015, when the whole issue around planning legislation changed. And certainly even prior to that, I remember some of the angst that was around, particularly around neighbourhood renewal and what role council felt they had in that. And that conversation was a bit back to front, notwithstanding the fact that you have some great people working in council and some great people working in the community. So for me, today is really important, not just for the fact that we're all meeting and talking about why community planning matters, but it's an opportunity to draw a line on where people want to see community planning, and more importantly, how they see themselves and their communities involved in this process, and what happens at the other end in terms of the outcomes. Because Irene mentioned around an outcomes-based approach, and that was the last programme for government. First of all, I want to touch on a couple of issues. So first of all, since COVID-19 happened, the response from the community, in my opinion, particularly from the grassroots, has been second to none. So it was a lifeline, worked in a collegiate and collective approach, provided not just food, medicines, but also provided opportunities for some of our most vulnerable people in isolation. And that's young people, older people, people with learning difficulties, learning and mental health problems right across the sector. When we talk about being good neighbours, I fully believe, I've seen it myself, that I suppose that the joint effort will be remembered for a long, long time. So just to feed that back to you, I'm privileged to work in and represent an area, live in an area where people got together in a very short period of time in the midst of a crisis. and roll their sleeves up and get stuck in. And that's what people have been doing for a number of years, and they've been doing it well. So I just want to put that on the record. So I suppose the opportunity this morning is that when RPA happened and we went from 26 to 11 councils, the focus then, I suppose, and rightly so, prioritise, well, what services do local government offer? What are they relevant? Are they effective? Outside of what local government is tasked to do. And there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that certainly when it came to my own experience in Belfast has been a very positive one. However, that wasn't the same right across the board, and that's some of the feedback that I've certainly received. And for us, it's about promoting what are positive relationships, what is positive engagement, and more importantly, what are positive outcomes. So, Irene and Jim, it's very timely that we're having the voluntary and communities sector and social enterprises this discussion. I suppose the other thing for me is that, and you did mention that the whole piece from the Department for Communities on co-production, co-design, you will be aware and will be familiar with the new decade approach, where it had co-production and co-design at the heart of those documents, and that's something that this department has taken, lifted, and we're implementing it as best as we possibly can. So what does it look like? Well, it means all the social strategies that have been outstanding, indeed some of which have been subject to court cases, because it was a denial of rights, right at the heart of government, around anti-poverty, around languages, around equality, around respect, around investment. And I'm delighted that this department has appointed their panels, will be going out to consultation on what those strategies look like. And that is part of a co-design and co-production exercise. But for me, and indeed for Deirdre Harkey, there was a missing piece, and that was about wealth building. So what does it actually mean, and what does it look like? So I have asked Trademark and DT&I to bring forward a template for community wealth building. It will require legislation, I've no doubt about that, because it's all about your Community Empowerment Act, your Social Value Act, all that rolled into one. It means that vast sums of public money, both in capital and revenue, need to have a community wealth indices beside it. So when you're looking at equality implications, you need to look at community wealth building implications as well. And it's not just somewhere on a page to tick a box. We actually have to see demonstrated evidence that it's working and that it's happening. Because too often, communities have felt that they've been left behind. And I suppose the good thing about today is even just seeing some of the people in the virtual room. You're going to deal with the very small to the very big and everybody else in between. You're going to deal with all different sectors. You're going to deal with lobbyists, you're going to deal with councils, you're going to deal with a huge amount of people. But the difficulty, not the difficulty, the challenge in it all is to make sure that people, whatever comes out of all this, people see themselves in it. So DFC have, and rightly so, invested quite a lot of money into the community and voluntary sector, particularly over the last lot of months. That additional funding has actually helped people who have been isolated, helped communities who are on the front line trying to deliver inclusivity and isolation. I suppose all the things I've just been doing anyway, but just to give people a bit more security in terms of helping them meet the challenges. In September, I did host a community wealth building policy symposium. Big long title, but basically what it means is, like, so for Belfast, it set out the Belfast Agenda, it set out you know, the different economic and social and cultural challenges and opportunities that we all have. But the key to it all is about real and meaningful partnership. And I know it sounds dead straightforward, but that's because it is. And that's basically it. Communities will test out the effectiveness and indeed the representation of the partnerships. It will also mean that for some communities who have experienced a lot of gatekeeping over the years, have the authority to challenge those partnerships to ensure that whatever investment, and there needs to be investment, is made, that it's reflective not just of where people are at, the immediate needs, but also future-proofing those needs. And that means to say there's going to be additional consultation, workshops. These will be doing that today in breakout rooms. And for people just to plan what they want to see, what difference, because it's easier to say what you don't want. But for us, it's very, very important that we outline what people want and, more importantly, what people need. So I think this is a great opportunity. I look forward to working with you in the future. Unfortunately, I'm not able to stay after I come off this call because I'm going into a series of meetings and then I'm in the assembly. But the issue for me is that I'm absolutely delighted that this, for me, this process has started properly. And the key challenge and the key question, and I look forward to seeing the results of today, is, so where do we go from here? What happens next? What do those relationships look like? Where are the roads for the community in the voluntary sector and the whole area of development and social enterprises and all the rest? And more importantly, what roles do we all have in terms of strategy, central, local government, community, residents, neighbours, and then some. So Irene and Jim, I want to thank you for the invitation to speak at your first conference. I look forward to doing follow-up meetings with you after, because I would expect that to be one of the next steps. And just for everybody on the call, again, I just want to thank you. Very heartfelt thanks to all the work that you have done. I'm quite proud to be the Minister for Communities in this period, but also quite proud to be part of an approach that has seen what we have done best for years actually recognised by government. So I just want to put that on the record. Wish us all the best and encourage us to stay safe. Gormagov.
Thanks very much, Minister. And you know, I've heard you many times talking about community plans work best when they're shaped not only for the local community but by the local community. Something that I'm sure that we're going to talk about a lot today, and really appreciate all of your support. And indeed, we look forward to having a meeting imminently after this conference. So I know that you have to leave us now, but thanks very much for taking the time to join us for our first conference. And
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much.